Hello guys, hello everyone. I hope everyone are doing good. Sachin, are you with me?
Hi, good evening, sir. Yes,
Uh,
yes, I'm here.
am I allowed to get started or should I wait for people to join in?
Yes, you can start with just 2 minutes recap for yesterday's session, and then we can continue with your topic.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Okay. Uh, Welcome back again, guys. So we'll be continuing from where we left off yesterday, which is we have discussed about Palo Alto's administrator creation or user creation. We'll do a short demo on that one. Meanwhile, on the course of it, I'll explain you what we discussed yesterday. That was one of the new. That was only the new topic that we discussed yesterday. Apart from that, we did a recap of the day zero, right? So we will continue from where we left off yesterday. Meanwhile, give me a minute for me to start my lab in a minute. So we won't be getting into the topology side of it until we get into the core topics, like your security policy or your NAT policy. Until then we don't really need a topology. While we are discussing about some basic stuff that we need to do on the firewall, right? So we will talk about um, some basic topics where we will not be using any specific topology as such, but just will be dealing with one individual firewall like we did yesterday, right? So, for example, configuring a management interface that doesn't need a topology, right? So we have just kept a firewall, and we're just playing with this firewall to know better about the firewall. Once we start working with the core concepts like a security policy or a NAT policy or your policy-based forwarding and all those stuff, we will eventually start building the topology. I hope that is fine with everyone, right? Because any which ways, having a topology here in the chat, we will only be handling with one firewall while discussing these topics, right? So we are not concerned about a topology until we get into the core topics. Okay. So with that being said, let's get started with yesterday's topic from where we left off. So we have discussed about administrator profile, or creating an administrator username, password, creating roles for them, and then configuring uh, roles and profiles for them to restrict access as to what they're accessing basically, right? So let me access the firewall. So as you know, by default, the username and password of your firewall would be admin. And during your first login, it always asks you for the change in password, which we have already done. So I am logging into my admin account, which is a super user account, which means I can access anything on the firewall and I can do any changes on the firewall if I'm a super user, right? So that's the first of the few dynamic user roles that we saw. We will be talking about more of it in this session, right? So let's wait for the firewall to log in. Okay, so I have my firewall with me. For those who have not attended the sessions yesterday, I just have done one thing on the firewall with regards to configuration, which is configuring the management interface IP address, which is 192.168.1.1/24. And I've kept my PC on the same network so that I can access my firewall through GUI from my PC, right? So if you just check my PC's IP address, it should be on the same network as this. So if you see, I'm on my admin account and I'm accessing the firewall from 192.168.1.2, which is my PC's IP address, right? So I'm on my firewall right now. This is how your firewall looks like, as you have already seen. So with respect to the management interface configuration, we have to initially access a firewall through console, which is CLI. and configure the IP address of the firewall and then access the firewall through GUI like this, right? Like I just did. So yesterday we were talking about administrator creation. Let's try to create a new administrator. Meanwhile, while we do that, we will try to talk about what are the roles or type of administrators we could create. So let me create an administrator called test1, and based on where he gets authenticated, I will be able to add an authentication profile like I mentioned yesterday. Someone was asking about how to do a TACACS based user. So which is something that I have skipped for now. If time permits, we will try to see, if we have privilege to, add a TACACS server here, we will try to add them too, right? So we will keep that for rest because that is something that is not so important with respect to the next-gen firewall feature, right? So I'm creating an administrator called test1 and I'm giving a password for him, um, which is something relevant. Okay. And there are two types of administrators that we could create, as we saw. One is dynamic, and in dynamic, you have about four types of administrators we could create here. I will talk about each and every one of them. One of them being super user, which is exactly what my admin username is about. My account, which I logged in right now, is a super user, which means I can do any changes on the firewall, no restrictions at all, right? And super user read only, it is exactly like a super user, but I only can read, or it's a read only type of user where I couldn't do any changes onto the device, but I can see everything. I can visualize everything, right? Device administrator, something similar to super user, but he can view anything, edit anything except your administrator tab that is over here. Apart from that, he is allowed to do anything that a super user could do as well, right? And device administrator read only, it's a read only version of device administrator, as simple as that, right? So let's try to create, as you already know what is a super user, let's try to create a device administrator type of user, and the test one is going to be device administrator. If required, you could have a password policy. As I said, it's just going to talk about what is your password expiration date and no length of the character of your password, how many characters should your password have, and so on and so forth. Which is not so important in our context, right? So let's click on OK. So we have created one user who is of type device administrator under dynamic role, right? So let me create one more. I'll say test2 and I create them with a password. And this time, let me add, um, let's say, device administrator read only. So let's try to see the difference. As I mentioned, super user and super user read only are going to be the same, just that it's a read only version of super user, right? So let's test these two type of users and then we'll move on to the next one. Yeah. So let's quickly commit the change. As you know, commit is very important with respect to saving the configuration onto your firewall. If not, your firewall changes that you did will not take effect, right? So you have to commit the changes. Make sure you're committing your change only, which means the administrator who is doing the changes actually from your side, right? So this is the account that I'm logged in right now, and I'm going to commit only my changes here. I'm not going to commit all the changes, which means if five or six of the engineers are working on the same firewall, then you may end up committing this change as well. If he's on the middle of some changes, then you might create a partial outage. So make sure you always commit your change alone, right? So let's say admin creation. Always it's good to give a comment so that you know what exactly the change is about. Okay, let's wait for this change to get committed and we'll move along with testing them, right? So once this commit is completed, we can log out from admin account, which you see here, and log in as test1 user, test2 user, and then verify what do we see, right? So let's wait for a minute for this commit to get completed. This is going to be a problem in terms of how long it takes to commit the change. It usually takes about a minute for the commit to complete. It is normal in terms of how much time it takes. You got to bear with it because there is again a security feature here as well. If you're doing any, misconfiguration, it's going to avoid you from committing the change, which means you will avoid creating outages at times, right? So that's the only reason why we are, spending some time here for the commit to get completed, right? So unlike your Fortinet next-gen firewall or a Cisco router or a switch, you don't really know if you've configured something wrong, and you don't really create an outage immediately like you do in Cisco. Cisco picks up the changes immediately, but your Palo Alto firewall always requires you to commit a change before it applies to your device, right? So until your commit is 100% successful here, your changes are going to be just in draft. It is not going to take any effect. All right. So let's just wait for a few more seconds for this commit to complete, and then we can test the users we created. So as you could see, few concepts with Palo Alto are quite simple. It's good that that's how we start. As we advance along the concepts, there will be topics which would really be interesting and challenging. So let's just get there slowly. For now, let's verify after this commit is done. Verify to let's just wait for this to be completed, and we will go on to check our users. Okay, so you could
We
see.
can, yeah,
Mhm. Yes,
one
please.
query. So
Yeah.
when you're committing the changes, right, you told to avoid the outage when parallelly other members are logging into it.
Mhm.
Uh, when they do commit, right, it can create issues, right? So
Yeah,
to
it's a
avoid that,
responsibility of each and every one of us. You are supposed to only commit your change, right? So it's as good as minding your own business.
okay.
So it's just configuring. While we configure something, we are supposed to only save our configuration, which is something that we are doing right now. So if it's something that we have configured, if you have configured a specific rule, and if I'm committing other changes, let's say for example, you and me are doing a change on the firewall at the same time. I have done
Mm,
with the change, but if I need to commit the change, I need to only commit my change, not your change as well. So if I go and say commit all changes, you might be in the middle of the change where you are still yet to complete your change, or in the middle of a change where some part of the configuration is still pending from your side. If I end up committing your change as well, at that point of time, you might have only configured half of your change and remaining are still pending. If I go ahead and commit all the changes, I will commit my change, it's all right, but I will also commit half of your change, which might cause an outage, right? So, because you might be in the middle of configuring an interface, but not routing. So, routing might be pending. If no routing, then it is not going to work for you, right? So, that's what I mean.
mm.
Yeah.
Oh,
Everyone's
okay.
responsibility it is. It is your responsibility as well as my responsibility to make sure only what we do is being committed.
So regarding that lock feature, right? If you see right side top corner of the lock, does it prevents committing or the changes anyone can make?
Yeah, it prevents anyone can see, for example, okay, let me talk about this as well. So let me talk about this after I finish this administrator. Thanks for
Okay.
reminding me. I will anyways talk about this, but let me take it after, immediately after we complete that. Okay.
Okay.
So I have two administrators created. One is of role device administrator and device administrator read only. So let me log out of this because currently I'm on admin. You know what a super user is right now because that's where we are currently in. We can do any changes without restrictions, and super user read only. It's only read only version of super user. You will see everything a super user could see, but you couldn't do any changes or edit. So let's log out and let's log in as a test one user now with the password that I've set. So I'm on test one user who is a device administrator. As I said, it's no different than a super user type of administrator, but you cannot see anything with respect to you cannot see or edit with anything with respect to your administrator accounts with device administrator role. So let me check that. So if you could see, I can go to policies. Just give me 1 second. It's taking a. Okay, let's go to policies. Under security policy, I have the privilege to click on the add button. I can create a policy and it's pretty much I could do anything here with respect to source. I can just select anything over here, like any destination, source, any source, and then just click OK. I will be able to create a policy just like your super user if I'm a device administrator. So let me delete this. Okay, so which means I can do anything a super user could do, but the only difference here with the device administrator account is if I go to my administrator tab, I only see my account. If you remember, I have already created test 2 and I already have admin account by default available as a super user account. But you see, I will not be able to see any of it and I won't be able to change any of it, right? Even my test account that I am currently logged into. So I won't have privileges to do anything with this administrator or administrator role or anything as such, right? So apart from administrator specific configs, I can do anything on my firewall. That is your device administrator account. Okay. Whereas device admin read only, if I log into test 2, it is going to be exactly how you saw your device administrator account, just that you won't be able to make any other changes too. So I was able to create my policies with my device administrator account, but not anything on my administrator user creation. But with device administrator read only, everything is read only. You won't have privileges to edit anything on your firewall. So that's your read only account of device administrator. So as simple as that. So if I go to my policies again with the test 2 account, as you see, I'm on test 2 and I won't be able to add or remove or do any changes to my firewall from any tabs. You see, I will not have any privilege to create a policy or anything as such. Additionally, like you saw in device administrator accounts, you won't be able to see anything under administrator account except your specific user with which you cannot make any changes to, right? So no changes whatsoever, only read only account plus no access to any other administrator user on your administrator tab. Cool. I hope the dynamic user is clear. Let me log out and log in as admin again so that I can make some changes. So now I'm on my super user account. Let's look at the second type of administrator. So the ones that we looked at till now is a dynamic type of users. The next one is role-based users, right? So we have to create roles for the users as to what tabs they could see, what tabs they cannot see, what could be read-only, what could be editable. Accordingly, we'll be having that user uh, restricted to what we need him to access or what we need not have access for him. So what do I mean by that is I have two other users, test 1 and test 2, which I will use for the same demonstration of your role-based user access. So let's close this and go to device again. And go to administrators again. I know that I have two other users I've created apart from admin. So let me use that again for this demonstration too. So let me go for test 1. If you see, my administrator type currently is dynamic. It's still loading maybe. I can change it to role based and I have to create a profile and use it under my role based account, which I have not yet created. So let me cancel this for now and go to my admin roles where I can create roles. So there are already 3 roles being created by default on a firewall. Let's not use that. Let's go on to add a new one. I'll say test 1 role for test 1 user. I'll just be creating 1 role and then let me see how things are here. So I'll say he's a monitoring team user and he needs access only to dashboard, ACC monitor, ACC and monitor, right? So apart from that, no other tab should be available for him to be accessible. So I'll just restrict him from policies, no access to policies, no access to objects. I'm just clicking on them, not doing anything more. Just clicking on them will change the role. So if you see, this is enable, this is read only, and this is disable. So network as well, I'm disabling it. Device operations, privacy, everything else. I don't need him to do any changes whatsoever on any of these tabs. I need him to access monitor, ACC, and dashboard tab. And let me click OK. So there are other areas where you could restrict him from doing anything. For example, XML API. As you know, XML API is basically going to have if you're using any automation tool for automating your firewall work, you probably might be accessing the firewall using XML API. So let me just show you that. How do you access XML API of your firewall? So as you know, your firewall's configuration is basically going to be saved as an XML file. So if you need to access your HTTPS colon slash slash your firewall IP address slash XML, you will be accessing the firewall using API. Um, okay, I think it's slash API if I'm not wrong. Yeah. So this is your API browser for the firewall. You could probably, if you're using a Python code or if you're using JSON or Terraform or any tool, Ansible or anything, you probably might be reaching out to the firewall or contacting the firewall not directly, but using XML API, right? Using an API call, right? You'll be calling the firewall for doing any operation using API, right? So how do you basically access a firewall? How do you access different parameters of the firewall, like your configuration commands or commit, or if you want to do a commit after the change? No, this is where you go ahead and get the specific URL for that specific action. For example, if I want to say some show commands, operational commands, show interface management to get the output of a management, or show system info to get the serial number of the firewall. So I can go to operational commands and I can say show. I can say system. So this is exactly the command that I'm going to type on my CLI. I'm just using that to get my exact XML URL. So system, where is system? Yeah, here is system, show system info is here. So this will give me the system information of the firewall. Basically your firewall host name, your um, firewall host name, serial number, and all the good stuff with respect to what do you need on a firewall. Some information about the firewall basic. This is the URL that you would be interested in. Basically, you can use this URL inside your code for you to call the firewall using the API URL, right? So this is the URL that you will be using inside your code. So it could be any code that you can write, right? So this is how you access your API, and this is how you actually get to a specific operational command or configuration command or whatever it is to get the exact URL, right? So this is just FYI for you if you are interested in automation. So yeah, so that's XML API. If my user, obviously for you to log into the API and do an API call, you need a username and password. So if I'm using test one user, and if I say that I will not have any access to operational commands or configuration, then I will not be able to make that API call, right? So I can restrict that as well here. And I obviously command line and REST API. This is another way of calling your firewall using API, right? So let me only concentrate on this one where I have only asked your user to have access to. Why is this not? Okay. He only has access to monitor tab, ACC and dashboard. So let me click OK. So this is the role that I've created. Okay. So let me apply this role to a user, test one user, and let me go ahead and choose his role to be role based. administrator type to be role based, and then I can choose my role that I've created and click OK. And commit the change as usual. Without commit, it is not going to take effect. So commit only my changes. Right now, I know that I'm only using the firewall for myself. So it's okay to commit every change. It is completely fine. But when you are working with multiple users, then it's always safe for you to practice committing only your change. So let's wait for this to complete. Meanwhile, as I complete each configuration, any configuration for any topic, we will get a break of 1 or 2 minutes here while it gets committed. I would recommend you to use that time to ask any questions in the middle. So even if I'm not pitching for questions, if I forget, please ask your questions when the commit is happening, because we will not be doing anything whatsoever while the commit is happening. We have to wait for seeing the output, right? That is how your firewall works. So you can utilize this 1 minute or so for asking any questions, and I will be happy to answer you guys. It could be for any topic, going forward, we'll be dealing with a lot of topics. Every topic that I do or every configuration I do needs a commit. It minimum takes about a minute, so utilize that time for questions so that we don't waste much time on our session. Yeah, this gets completed. This got completed quite quickly, I believe. Yeah, it is done. So now that we have configured a profile, admin role for our user test one, let me log out and log in back again for as a test one user and see what do we see with this login account. So test one and the password. So I am logged in. As you see, I only see three tabs. As far as my configuration is concerned, I've only allowed this user to access three tabs, and that is what I see here as well. So this is exactly what I wanted, and that's what I see as well. So let's log out quickly, log in back as an admin user, and we'll move on to the next topic. So I think the next one that you guys asked for was to explain the lock system. Let's get there and explain that. So I hope this is clear with respect to administrator and roles. It's not so much technical, but it's a good information to know. Now these are all configs that you do while you deploy your firewall first time. You don't really touch this after you deploy them unless you have users keep changing in your organization. But these are something that you might be doing while deploying your firewall for the first time. So it's not something that you do on a day-on-day basis. So once I log in as an admin user, I should have full access all over again. I can then start working towards other topics. So yeah, so as you were asking about, just give me 1 second. Just give me a second, please. All right. Sorry, guys. I had to pick up a urgent call. Okay, so we are on our admin account, and as we were talking about the config lock, so there is no lock taken at the moment, as you just see while I hover over my cursor on the top of this icon. I don't have a lock taken till now by anyone. So since I'm the administrator, I'm the super user, I'm allowed to take a lock if I'm doing any critical configuration. So let me say that I'm taking a lock, and while taking a lock, it is going to ask me of type. I can say no one should commit any changes while I'm doing a config, or no one should do any config at all. So if you want to be safest, you could say no one should do a config. If he's not doing a config, he should not be able to do any commit, right? Even if he commits, he might be committing my change, but he won't be able to do any config. So it's up to you to decide what exactly the lock should be for. And I can say comment on DC activity, do not use the firewall, right? So let me click OK, and I should be having my lock activated, logged in, yes, and this is the lock that I've taken, and the username is admin. And this user has taken a lock for commit. No one should be able to commit the change unless I release the lock, right? Or if any other super user is available, and if he thinks that he is going to be safe enough to not do any changes, then he can bypass that lock and then use the firewall normally, right? So let's say I've taken a lock from my admin account, and let me log out, and then if you see the lock is active for one user, click to see logs. It's going to give me some information about the lock here, as I see here. So it's close. If you want to take another lock, you could do so as well. As I said, I've taken a lock for commit. I can also take a lock for config as well. So let's say I've taken a config log too, right? Two logs, and let me log out and log in as another user. Maybe um, whom should I log? I think just one user is no more device administrator user. So I'll have to change him. Let me change him and then come back and log out and log in again. Yeah, so I don't have any other user who could do changes on the on my firewall, right? So test one user is now only going to see three tabs, which is a monitor tab, ICC, and dashboard tab, because I've changed this role. And test two user is already a read-only user. So I should change the role of either of the two users, test one or test two, commit it, and then come back and log in and verify if I can do any changes. So I have logged in as admin again, and let me change the roles for those users and come back and verify the logs. I hope you guys are following me. I hope it is not confusing you guys. If it is, then please ask me out. I'm okay to explain things again. So since I have no user, I'm not having any user who can do any configuration apart from administrator user. I am going to change the roles of test one or test two, so that I can test this lock. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. So I've logged into the user called admin again, who's a super user. I can make changes because I'm the one who's taken the lock. So lock is not for me, but for others not to make any changes. So I can very well make changes to the firewall unless someone else has taken a lock, for me to get restricted on the firewall. So yeah, so I am on admin user again, as you see. I'll try to change the roles for test one or test two, and then come back, log in as that user, and then verify how does the lock work. So let me go to device tab, administrators, and let me pick up test one, and I'll change the role to dynamic, and I'll say he's a device administrator, which means he can do changes. You cannot see only the administrator tab or admin roles tab. So let's click OK and commit my changes. You see the commit is active for me because I'm the one who's taken the lock. Apart from me, no one else should be able to make a change because I have taken the lock. So let me commit my changes. As you see, taking a lock doesn't need a commit, right? So just for taking the lock, you don't really need to commit the change. It's not a configuration change, but you're just doing a change by locking the firewall from others to get make any configuration onto the firewall. So there's no commit required for your config lock to be taken. Everything good so far? While this gets committed, any questions? Hopefully. If you have any questions, as I said, please do ask out then and there so that things are getting clarified as it is. Okay. So yeah, configuration committed successfully. And now let me log out and log in as test one. Yeah. To verify if my lock is properly taken. So I'm logging in as test one and with the password.
Hi guys. In between, if you guys have any question related to the topic, you can ask. Kindly make interactive so that it will be very helpful for you. Thank you.
Okay, so after we are logged in as device administrator, the user is test one. I have taken a lock, so I should not be able to do any configuration change. There's no lock taken. How is that possible? Let me just try to do some config change. It's randomly configuring something for me to verify things, but it doesn't look good for me because I have taken a lock from my administrator and I do not see the lock active as far as I see at the top here. So let me just click OK and hmm, okay, let me delete this. I shouldn't be able to make any changes because I am okay. Let me log in as super user again. This is not how it's supposed to work, but let's log in to verify them again. So this is the user which I used for taking a lock. So let me see what do I see there.
You are not supposed, it shouldn't allow you to do any changes, right? On the
Yeah,
session.
exactly. Exactly. I mean, meaning I've taken a lock for configuration as well as for commit. So I shouldn't be
Mm.
able to commit or do a configuration as far as my lock is concerned. But let's go ahead and see in my administrator account where I've taken the lock from to
Mm.
see if my lock is active still. You see that it is not yet active, um, okay, which is strange. I don't know how that got removed. Let me activate it again.
Does it have a session timeout or timeout for this lock
Not
in case?
really. Unless we release it, it shouldn't be releasing its lock, I would say.
Okay. If a person commits, tries to do a configuration and he forgets to unlock it after the commit, then so we
Yeah,
have to contact.
see, you have an option to remove a lock here, right? So if I just select this and then remove a lock, that's how it gets unlocked. So, right, otherwise
Okay.
it doesn't do. And if you have a timestamp, it should give me an option to, choose the timestamp until when the lock should be active. I don't see anything as such. So, which means I do not have a timeline as to when this gets activated or deactivated. So let me take it again. And I'm not removing it. Let me close this. And the lock is taken now. So let me log out and log in back again. I am not sure. I don't know if I've unintentionally removed the lock, but let me test it again.
Since we are logging out, the session gets over. So by default, the log gets unlocked.
Probably yes. If that is the case, then let us try to log in using a different browser, maybe Edge with a different user, and then see how things work. But it shouldn't be because unless the firewall is rebooting, whatever has been done on the firewall should stay, if I'm not wrong. So let me just see. You see the log is still there. I've logged into my test one now. Yeah, so I don't think if it is because of that. I don't know if it was some bug or some buggy behavior. It shouldn't have happened. But as you see now, I've taken a log for both configuration as well as commit. So I shouldn't be able to do both. So let me just go to policies and see if I can do changes. If I just want to view the log, I should be able to click on it and see who has done it. You see, as unless I'm a super user, see if I have logged in as another super user, for example, admin 2 is the username that I've logged into. If he is a super user type user, he should be able to release the lock because a lock is taken by a super user, and another super user can release a lock if he wants to do some change. That is possible. But this guy being a device administrator user, he even though he has access or privilege to do changes, he shouldn't be able to take a lock or release a lock, which has been done by a super user because super user is the highest privilege. Device administrator is having at least some lower level privilege than a super user, so he shouldn't be able to override what a super user is trying to do. So in that case, you will not have any privilege to remove the lock, right? So let me just add. We try to create a policy. Rest is kept constant. As you see, configuration is locked by admin. You won't be able to do any changes. In fact, you can add and then do whatever you would like, but you will not be able to click OK at the end, right? So that's exactly what I meant to show you. And also, no commit. If you cannot do any changes, no commit is required. But still, if you try to commit, you won't be able to commit the changes because there is no commit scope, first thing. Even if you try to commit all the changes, so since I have not done any change, it is giving me a warning that even though you commit, the result would be the same configuration because no changes have been made, right? Plus, even if there is any changes made, even let's say for example, I've not taken a config lock but only commit log. Even if I could do some changes, I won't be able to commit them because the commit log has been taken, right? So yeah, that's exactly how it works. So let me log out. I hope this is clear. So let me log in as the admin user again. Yeah, so let's additionally take a look at a few more caveats with respect to your firewall basic configuration for post, which we'll try to build a topology today and keep it ready for tomorrow, and then we'll start with the other topics. Since it's the first week, we'll keep things short. We'll keep one topic or maybe two short topics at a day in a day. From the second week, we can take a little further, take one step a little longer for us to connect for more time from next week. So yeah, so as you see, the logs are here. I can remove the log right now. Since I'm the user who has taken the log, I can remove it myself. So let's take and let's go ahead and remove both the logs and then start with our next topic. I'll keep a short topic away from us. for us to complete for today, and then we will call it a day after maybe 10-15 minutes from now. So I'm removing the first lock, my second lock, and that's it. So you can close it. No locks at the moment. Why it's is coming, but oh no. The locks are already released. Maybe I've clicked it twice so that it's popping up twice. Let me refresh this. Okay. So I think from tomorrow we can start with objects, which is I would like you to know a couple of things on objects before we move along. But before that, I would like you to get familiarized with backups and what all do you have with respect to your device tab. How do you upgrade your firewall? What are the different steps you use for upgrading the firewall? And pretty much more for us to get started with other configuration. So we know how to commit. We know what all do we have in commit. So if you just go and click on it, maybe if I click commit all changes, oh, I don't have any changes done here. Let me just do a small change. Go to objects. I just want any change for me to initiate a commit, right? So let me just change the IP address. I've just created one object with a name. So let me just change this IP to .2 so that I'll initiate a change and click OK. So this should let me commit the change. So for those who are new, it's just about understanding what these tabs mean. Commit all changes and commit changes made by your user. I think this is already understood. And commit scope, it is going to say what is the scope of your commit. So where have you done the changes and what exactly is going to get committed. So my commit scope is going to be on policies and objects because I've done a change on objects, right? And preview changes, you will be able to do a review or preview of your change that you've done by clicking on this one. If you just wait for a second, it's going to bring up the XML format. And if you see, I have changed my object called test and the value for it from 1.1 to 2.2.2.2. So this is just for you to review your changes. I will talk about what is a running configuration, candidate configuration in a minute. I'll just park it for me in a second. We'll talk about it. So yeah, maybe now. Yeah. So running config is the configuration before you have done any change. So running configuration is basically the committed configuration. So whatever is the configuration that is currently committed and active on your firewall, that is called as running config, right? So candidate config is going to have, it's going to include the non-committed config as well, right? For example, if I have all this configuration like host name, the zones and all those stuffs are here. Let's say earlier before committing, at this moment, since I have not committed my value change of 2.2, my current config on my firewall, which is actively available, which is committed and actively available, is the test object having the IP address of 1.1. So this is running config. The config which is committed and ready for use, right? The ones that we have done the changes on, let's say we have done the changes on the same object and we have changed the IP address. This IP address change will take effect only after committing the change, right? So this becomes a running config. This value becomes a running config only after I commit the change. So right now I've not committed this change. I'm just trying to or waiting for it to get committed. So right now, this change or this line of config is a candidate configuration. So candidate config is running config plus the changes done, running config plus the non-committed changes or uncommitted changes, right? So that's how you should understand a candidate configuration, right? So preview changes will give you this information. Change summary, pretty much the same. You will only be able to see the changes that you have done. So if you see the object name is test and type is address and operation, I have edited the specific object. I've edited the value from 1.1 to 2.2. Okay, who has done the change and who is the owner? No, owner in the sense who has created this object, and previous owners is who has created the object, and owner is who has edited this object, who has performed this operation, right? And again, running config and candidate config here. Running config is the currently committed configuration. Candidate is the changes which have been done which are not committed yet. Okay, so that's about it. Validate commit. If you would like to validate if your commit is going to be successful or not, without committing, you can just try to validate it. It will validate in the backend and say if the commit will be successful. Whatever configuration you have done is good or not, right? So you could do it if you would like, but let me click cancel because I don't want this commit anyways. I'm just showing you how the commit tab looks like. So since I've done this change, let's say I've done a change before committing, I want to revert it. The simple option is to go here and revert the change. And here again, you will have an option to revert your change alone or all the changes. Always good to only revert your change. So the config will be reverted now because I have done the change of an IP address, but I don't really need it because it doesn't make any sense for me. I just did it for showing you the commit tab and commit options. So changes were reverted from the configuration. So let me close. You have your IP back again. Okay, cool. Okay, so that is something I would like you to know. Apart from that, let's go to device tab. We'll like try to look at a few other configuration and few other informations, I would say. So if I go to device tab, go to setup. This is where you basically do your config backup, configure a management interface, and all those stuff. So if you go to device setup management, here is where you can edit your device specific general setting information. Like if my host name has to be changed, I'll have to change this to maybe firewall-1. And what is the domain ID for my firewall? So if I say um, lab.local, so my firewall will be identified as fw1.lab.local. So that's how my firewall's domain name will be identified as, right? Okay, login banner, lab firewall. And if I want my 50, for example, my own firewall is having a certificate warning. If I do not want that warning to be activated here, if I need to get rid of that warning, I need to trust the website of my firewall. So I need to trust the URL of my firewall. So I can have an SSL profile created, which will avoid this error from being created. And I'm basically trusting this website, right? So I create a certificate, I create a profile, and I attach the certificate to the client machine so that I can say that my website, my firewall's URL is trusted, right? Apart from that, you can add your time zone and your language, date, time, latitude, longitude if you'd like to. And that's about it with your general settings. So let me click OK. Okay. And device certificate. So this device certificate is necessary for you to basically pull all your relevant firewall information. For example, one such information you would get or you would not get without activating a device certificate is your software image updates here. For example, when you want to upgrade your firewall, you need to come here, check for your new version images, and for which your firewall needs to have internet access. Yeah, basically your firewall needs to have internet access through your management interface by default. And once it is done, the firewall will basically try to reach your update server, updates.paloaltonetworks.com. So the update server will be contacted by the firewall and it will pull your latest software images if you just click check now here, right? First and foremost criteria is to have internet access for your firewall management interface. It will try to reach out to the update server and will pull your latest software images. So for this to happen, your firewall should be having your device certificate active. So this basically will happen automatically if your firewall again has connectivity to internet. So you can just click on get certificate. It will try to fetch the certificate automatically if your firewall is registered onto your uh, customer support portal, CSP. That is your portal where you register your firewall serial number. So for the first time, every firewall needs to be activated with a device certificate manually, where you need to go to customer support portal and you got to get a device certificate activated manually, where you will be generating an OTP from your portal and you will be attaching that or copying that OTP and pasting it here, which will activate your device certificate, right? So as soon as this is activated, that's the only time that you need to manually activate it. Every 90 days, your device certificate has to be renewed. And I think 15 days prior to your expiration, your device certificate will be attempted. Your firewall will basically attempt to renew the certificate by itself. If you have proper support for your firewall, if it's registered onto your customer support portal, your certificate will get renewed automatically, provided your firewall should have internet access on your management interface, right? Is this clear? It's very, very important. This is the first and foremost step you do on your firewall. Making sure that your device certificate is activated so that you could do all of the license activation and all those stuff for your firewall, right? So the first and foremost thing to do is device certificate, before which you need to have internet access, especially DNS connectivity for your firewall. Firewall should be activated for internet access, plus it should be able to reach out to internet domain names, right? So that brings us to the next FYI, where if you need to have DNS activated for a firewall, for the firewall to reach internet specific domains like Palo Alto websites, google.com, or whatever it is, you got to be having your DNS servers updated on a firewall. If you see under services, you have services, primary DNS server. You can just update this to be 8.8, and the secondary, maybe I can say 1.1. So you got to make sure you have IP reachability to these IP addresses from your management interface, so that they will contact these IPs for DNS resolution. So for your firewall to reach update server, which is here, updates.paloaltonetworks.com, it needs to have reachability to the DNS IP addresses. One primary DNS probably is your Google DNS, and this is your Cloudflare. Good. I hope this is clear as well. So these are the initial configs that you do, 0-day configuration that you do on a firewall for you to build your firewall from the scratch, right? So that's the reason why I'm not having any topology here, but I'm explaining you all of this, because when you first deploy a firewall, you will not have a complete topology. You will not connect all the devices, switches, routers, everything onto your firewall and then configure it. You will only be having this setup, right? Firewall connected to a PC, you will start configuring them from the scratch all alone. Once you build your firewall with your certificates, you upgrade them properly to the right version and activate DNS, activate internet access, download, make sure your device certificate is active. After doing all the basic works, then you connect them to your topology. That's exactly what we are going to do as well, right? So I hope this is clear. So
So
first and foremost thing, your internet access is mandatory. Why? Your firewall should have device certificate activated. How do you activate it? Your customer support portal, your Palo Alto's account manager, or your whoever is your SME for your firewall, for your security devices, he will have access to the customer support portal, where he will go and register his firewall serial number inside the portal, and he has to generate an OTP from the portal, and that OTP has to be provided under device setup management for you to activate device certificate. If you just click here, it will ask for OTP. So this is how you activate the device certificate for the very first time for your firewall. From there, it automatically gets activated provided it has internet access and it has privilege to access this domain called updates.paloaltonetworks.com, for which you need to have DNS servers updated. Uh, for me, maybe it is 8.8 and 1.1. Right? So the device certificate, internet access is necessary for anything that you do on a firewall regarding your license activation, upgrades, everything. So for example, if you need to go and do a dynamic updates, for example, application and threat updates, device dictionary, your URL filtering updates, everything is basically activated first on your portal. So you have to get the subscription active. For example, if you're activating a Netflix.com account, you have to log into the website of netflix.com through your browser. If you ever have used Netflix, you have to activate the Netflix subscription through your browser and then go on to your application and use that subscription that you've activated. Likewise, if you need your application and threads, URL filtering license, your wildfire license, any license for your NextGen feature, you have to first activate it from your portal. Once that is activated, you can come here, and once you click check now, if your firewall has access to update server, updates.paloaltonetworks.com, internet access, it will fetch that from your customer support portal automatically. Right? So that's exactly what happens here. You need to have internet access for anything to happen on a firewall for your initial configuration. So this is one of them. Dynamic updates, licenses, like if you need to have premium support license for your TAC support, or if you need to have licenses for global protect, if you need to have licenses for URL filtering, if you need to activate the signatures for dynamic updates like application and threat, URL filtering, wildfire, for anything with respect to plugins as well, anything for that matter, internet access and reachability to update server is necessary, right? So starting from device certificate activation up to upgrading your firewall, you need your internet access. So that's the very first thing you need to take care of.
So for firewall reaching Palo Alto site, right?
Mhm.
Uh, there should be an existing policy, or by default, or the policy exists within the device.
Okay, it's a good question. So you are only going to take care of policies when you're using your data interfaces. So what are data
Oh,
interfaces? You go to network, your interfaces will have your Ethernet interfaces available here. So these are data interfaces. You will connect these interfaces to your corporate LAN, DMZ zone, outside zone, so your ISP or your internal users or your DMZ servers. So these are interfaces which will be used to connect all of them, right? Only for these specific interfaces or data interfaces specifically, you are creating policies. So consider your firewall's management interface. So I'm considering, if you assume that all of this traffic for accessing your Palo Alto's website for device certificate activation or licenses or anything, consider it's been achieved through management interface. Consider a
mm,
firewall as a client, firewall as a
oh,
PC.
okay.
So a firewall will be connected to your switch through your management VLAN. So if I have to explain that, give me one second. So I was trying to say, yeah. So if you'd like to, let's say this is your PC, and this is you are the user who sits somewhere in a remote location, right? So you're not directly connected to the firewall like you do here. This is not practically going to be possible for any location that you work on. Let's say you are sitting in India and you have Ireland where your firewall is located. And I'm only talking about the management interface of the firewall, right? So I'm not talking about the data interfaces. So just ignore the data interfaces. So if you consider the data interface, the firewall is going to be at your perimeter edge, which connected to your ISP, right? So I'm not coming into that point, but let's say your management interface of the firewall. is connected to your switch. And let's say the management interface is on VLAN number 100. And let's say your IP address is 192.168.32.150 on your firewall. And 32.1 will be your gateway for your management VLAN. So it's on VLAN 100 access, right? So consider your firewall as a PC configured with an access port on your switch. So your firewall, traffic for a firewall will be going through your router or any other firewall outside. So for example, let's say it's an intranet traffic, right? So for example, if my management IP of my firewall wants to reach internet, if it is going through the same firewall, so consider that this is my firewall and this is my switch connected behind the firewall, the core switch. And as I said, your management interface again goes to the core switch. Okay. So this is your VLAN number 100. Yeah. Management interface is on VLAN 100. So if your management interface is considered as your client interface, where considered it as a PC connected to your switch on VLAN number 100, this traffic, if it is going through the same firewall to reach internet to reach the Palo Alto website, then yes, you should have policy enabled for that. So because it's a subnet coming in from your own network. So consider this is the management interface on VLAN number 100. And if this interface is connected to the switch for on VLAN number 100 access, and your gateway on the switch for this VLAN is dot 192.168.32.10. That VLAN, for that VLAN to reach internet, it will again contact the same firewall through the data interfaces. Let's say this is interface Ethernet 1 and this is Ethernet number 2. This is your management interface,
Okay.
right? So consider this as a client interface coming and hitting your gateway for it to reach internet. So this is dot 150, this is dot 10, the gateway for this IP, right? And it hits the gateway, and the gateway will forward the traffic out to internet using the data interface of the firewall. So the same firewall acts as a transit for internet access. So this is your ISP.
Oh.
So in this case, you should, let's say this is inside, this is outside. The zone of your firewall interface is number 1 and number 2. So you should have a policy for this VLAN, maybe 100, to reach internet. Eventually your Palo Alto website, right? So depending on how your management interface is accessing internet, that's how
That
your,
link.
yeah, that link is accessing internet. That's how you are going to decide whether you need a policy or not. So in my experience, we had a setup where all your management network, let's say this is your firewall, this is your core switch, this is your access switches, all your interfaces, management interface goes on to connect to a management switch. Management interface. And this management switch takes the traffic to the router, and the router will be connected to a 4G network, a SIM network, because your 4G connection is not likely to have an outage, right?
It's
Con-
wireless.
yeah, compared to your normal ISP connectivity, your 4G device is not going to have sort of an outage more often than, no, it's not going to have an often outage like your ISP does. So to maintain your management access, you basically will be connecting your management interfaces through a management switch, and from the management switch you can maybe have an out of band device which you can connect. All the management interfaces comes and connects to the out of band device. Your out of band device will be reachable through the management switch and then through the router through your 4G network using a public IP, right? So which means if your 4G network is up, even though your whole site is taken down, your management access for all the devices will be up and running.
Mm.
Yeah, that's another way of setting the things up there. So this is your router. If this router is physically up, its power is up and running, you will have management access whatsoever for all the devices through your out-of-band device, like OpenGear or whatever device it is. You have a vendor called OpenGear that I work on. So this is the outside out-of-band device which gives management access, console access for all the interfaces, all the firewalls or all the devices in the network. So through this 4G router, you get access to the devices directly, even though your main network is taken down. Let's say the ISP is down, you have only one ISP, no redundancy. The traffic will still be, traffic for the internet and everything will be down, but still through your backend, through your 4G network, your devices will still be accessible for you to, do something and check what's going on. Even if it's not an ISP issue, it's an internal issue, you can fix it by logging into the backend. It depends upon how your management interface is connected. Depending on if this is the setup, if this is the setup that I just spoke about, then you need to have a policy from your VLAN number 100, which is terminating on a switch towards your internet.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope
Got
it's
it.
okay. So yeah, so that's about it for today. I hope it was informative. Let's call it a day today. Let's complete or let's start with the next topic from tomorrow. Yeah, from tomorrow we'll start building a topology slowly and we'll start with other topics as we move forward.
Okay.
So if there is no questions for me, that is it from my side for today. Let's continue tomorrow.
What would be the impact in case the device certificate get expired? So by one of issues, it is not able to reach Palo Alto site for renewing it, and it's get expired. So what would it will it impact the active traffic on the device?
Well, it will not impact the active traffic. If device certificate expires, as I said, you will basically not be able to upgrade your firewall. You will not be able to update your licenses. All those stuffs will happen. It's not that you will get an immediate impact. It's a silent impact you might be facing. You probably should be able to monitor this in some way. If it is not monitored, then you might be facing some issues with respect to when you try to upgrade the firewall. You will be in a window, change window, and then if you will figure out that the device certificate is not there, because of which you will not be able to, directly go on to the software tab and hit a check now and then pull your latest information of your software. Rather, you can do it on a traditional way by downloading the software image from the website, uploading it to the firewall, like you can upload it like this manually, and then upgrade the software. No, that's the older Cisco way of doing it, right? So here it has been made simple, but you should have device certificate and everything active so that you can, get this privilege. If not, you will not be able to do it, and you will need to download it onto your local machine. We don't know how long it takes. Everyone might have faced this issue. You will have the file in your local machine, but you don't know how long it takes to upload it onto your device, depending upon where it is located. So you might have taken only 2 hours of window for the upgrade, but the copy itself might take about 3 to 4 hours. So all those hassles would be there. But yeah, in terms of outage, you won't be facing much. There is not going to be any outage as such if your device certificate expires.
Okay. SNMP can be configured for device as a certificate.
Yeah, you can probably try to monitor this in some way. If your device certificate goes, if it expires, as I said, you could do a lot of stuff with the firewall if you can access and utilize the XML API that I just showed you. So you can go for a specific show command. I don't remember the command on top of my head, but if you can get a show
Mm.
command which will tell you whether the device certificate is active or not, with that output, you can go ahead and feed that to your SNMP or feed that to your syslog and say that if you get a log after this specific command is issued, if you see that the device certificate is expired, then you can notify the team.
Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
so I told you about the operational commands where you can use show commands. You can pick up the XML URL. You can use that for monitoring, or you can use the result from there to take a decision or take an action as to whether the if the device XP certificate has expired, then you might get a specific output. If that output is seen, then you can take a certain action. Send an email to the team.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, so that is it from my side, guys. If there is no other questions, that is it from my side. Anyone has any questions?
Yeah, hi Azad. This is Jignesh. I have one question.
Yeah.
So, if you have multiple firewall in the network, how do we monitor all the firewall? Like, which monitoring tool we can use it?
Well, it's a wide question, a broader question you're asking. It's up to the organization. See, if they do not want to spend much money, they won't go for a paid one. If they want a free tool, then you won't get much features. So it's up to them to balance with both of them and then choose the right tool. We cannot definitely say that this is how monitoring has to be done. It's up to them. If they just want to monitor the IP reachability, then you can go with a free tool. There are a lot of tools available for you to monitor the IP reachability of a device. But if you want to monitor very specific with respect to the CPU utilization, with respect to as we spoke about monitoring the device certificate stuff, now you need to have certain features onto your monitoring device. Like you need to use something like a SolarWinds, or you can use Grafana. A lot of monitoring tools are there. It is completely dependent on how much money your company can spend on the subscription.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Have we like any lecture for that in the future, like where we can do any ticketing things or like monitoring implementation on the firewall?
Uh, See, I won't be able to show you a real-time practical monitoring tool like we will be having for an enterprise network, because obviously we won't have that privilege of getting a monitoring tool downloaded, subscribing for that with some money. That is not going to be possible. But I can maybe give you some hint about how do you configure SNMP with respect to your firewall, not on the other side of your SNMP server. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, if,
okay,
if you if
thank
you
you.
really need to know how the firewall can be configured for SNMP, yeah, definitely I will try to take a session on that. But on the other side, it solely depends upon what tool are you using. Depends on what exactly you're using on the other side, and what features you are basically that tool possess for you to demonstrate that. But I will not be able to pinpoint a specific tool which is practically possible from my side with respect to how our enterprise network would do, because as I said, it's going to be costing us some money if you're going for a good tool for us to have a lot of features to monitor. Yeah, maybe
Mhm.
I can definitely show you what an SNMP is on your firewall, how it can be configured. That can be done for sure.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah,
I want to add one more thing here, sir. I
yeah.
have one another engineer who is already working on Palo Alto. So he's having the license for the Palo Alto firewall. Okay, so we can, show them how, in the real time also firewall works and how we can, monitor everything, right? So we can help in that case also.
Yeah, if we can provide licenses, then we can do much more on how
Yeah,
things.
he's, already teaching with us. So we can use that if required in that case. No problem.
Yeah, let me have a talk to him, talk with him. Maybe we can use
Definitely.
it at the far end of the session. Initially, I can go with what is available.
Definitely, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, guys. Today's session was, I believe it was very informative, and we can, connect by tomorrow same time. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Good night,
Yeah.
everyone. Good night.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Good night.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Good night.